This guy's now in prison because he murdered someone famous. Now, the guy's name is Christopher, and Christopher is 21 when the story starts, living in Wisconsin, and bro is just mentally unwell. In fact, he's hearing a lot of voices in his head, and they're telling him to do really bad things, and he's trying his best not to listen. But one day in 1990, I guess that fails, because he completes a work training program to become a carpenter. However, no matter how hard he tries, he can't seem to get a job. And soon he starts to realize that he may never get full-time work as a carpenter like he wants. And this really pisses him off, because the supervisor he worked with at the job training program promised him that he would eventually land a job as a carpenter. Not only that, Christopher, he's drinking a lot, he's been smoking a lot of Zaza, and this really isn't helping his mental condition. And this is where those voices in his head apparently start to take over. Because as all of this is going on, he decides he's gonna get revenge on the job training program for making him think that he could get hired somewhere. And so he grabs a pistol and he heads over to the job training office. And there, boom, he confronts the supervisor and the manager. And he points the pistol at them and he demands that they give him some money. But the supervisor, he doesn't have much money. So he just gives them the $15 that he does have. And I guess this isn't enough for Christopher, and so, blam, he unalives him right there. And so then the manager starts freaking out, and he's like, here's $3,000 and all my credit cards, please don't shoot me. And I guess this actually is good enough for Christopher because he suddenly leaves, allowing the manager to live. And immediately the manager calls the police, and the police start looking for Christopher, and bam, they find him and arrest him. Here's his mugshot. And he's sentenced to life in prison. But here's where the story actually gets interesting. Christopher ends up in the same prison as this guy, Jeffrey Dahmer. You know, Jeffrey Dahmer, the infamous serial killer who ate people. And so Christopher and Dahmer, they're both at this prison. And of course, at the prison, Dahmer, he's kind of a celebrity. Everyone there knows him, they know the evil things that he's done, and because of all that, the other inmates there, they all kind of hate him. And so a guard actually has to keep watch over him 24/7 because the other inmates hate him so much. He's actually always in danger of being attacked. Now, Christopher, despite hearing voices and having severe mental health issues, he's kind of the opposite of Dahmer. In prison, he's a chill guy. He keeps to himself, he follows the rules, and he doesn't really bother anyone. However, while in prison, Christopher also really starts to hate Dahmer. He hates him for the crimes he committed, he finds them deeply disturbing and evil, he hates him because he targeted mostly people of color in his murders. And to be fair, Dahmer makes it really easy for people to hate him. Not only is he a serial killer, but he seems to want to lean into his reputation as a horrible psychopath. He'll do things like he'll mold his cafeteria food into what looks like severed body parts, and he'll smear them with ketchup to make them look like they're bleeding. And to make it worse, sometimes he'll place that food around the prison where other inmates and guards will find it. And I guess his whole goal is to just upset people there. So you can see why people there hate him. Anyways, as Christopher gets further and further into his prison sentence, it seems like his mental health continues to get worse. Not only is he still hearing voices, but he now believes that some sort of God is speaking to him. He also believes that he is the son of this God, and he's totally willing to follow whatever orders this God gives to him. But he apparently doesn't really tell anyone about all this stuff. He pretty much just continues to keep to himself, and he doesn't bother anyone. Until he decides he's going to murder Jeffrey Dahmer. Apparently, the voices in his head, his gods or whoever's been talking to him, they have been telling him to make this happen. And one day in 1994, the perfect opportunity finally arises because he has been selected to clean the gym bathrooms. And Dahmer and one other inmate are also chosen to do the job. So Christopher, Dahmer, and the other inmate are all in the bathroom, unshackled, cleaning the place up. Then, for some reason, I guess the guards decide to take a break or whatever, and they leave the three inmates alone for a bit to finish the work, and no one is there watching them. And so Christopher is there, and he's doing the job he's supposed to do, while Dahmer and the other inmate they're just kind of screwing around and goofing off, not really working. And while Christopher's back is turned, suddenly one of the other inmates pokes him in the back with, I don't know, something, and he doesn't know what, but he turns around and both of them are laughing at him. And he asks them who did it, and both of them deny that they did anything. And this pisses Christopher off. And I presume that it's in this moment that his God starts speaking to him again, and I don't know what was said in this conversation, but apparently the God tells him to take these two guys out, like right now. And Christopher hears these orders, and he's like, all right. And so he makes his way over to the gym where no one is around, and there he finds a weapon. It's this 20-inch steel bar. I guess it's a bar that they use in like workout equipment. And so he grabs this bar and he hides it in his pant legs. Meanwhile, Dahmer and the other inmate, they have split up to start working in separate parts of the gym. And so Christopher, he goes to look for Dahmer, and he finds him alone in the locker room bathroom where he's cleaning the toilets. And there he walks up to him and he corners him, and he pulls out a newspaper clipping from his pocket that he had been saving for a long while. This clipping is an article about Dahmer, and it describes some of his crimes, like a bunch of the people he killed and exactly how he did it. And Christopher asks him if he really did all the stuff the article says he did. Did he really do all these horrible things to these people? And Dahmer, he's been in prison a while, so he knows what's about to happen. Like, he knows he's about to get a beat down, and he's cornered. And so, boom, he tries to escape. But Christopher, he pulls that metal bar out of his pants, and pow, pow, he hits Dahmer in the head 2 different times, and Dahmer falls to the ground, and he ends up unalived. Then, Christopher starts looking for the other inmate, because he had always hated that inmate too. He believes that that inmate is racist because that inmate is in prison because he had apparently murdered his own wife, and then he said, I didn't do it, it was actually a couple of black guys. And it turned out the black guys didn't exist. He was just blaming a minority. So anyway, Christopher starts looking for him, and he finds him cleaning a different locker room, and he approaches him, and without warning, pow, he beats him with that bar too. And that inmate eventually ends up unalived as well. Then Christopher quietly goes back to his cell. Where the hell are the guards who are supposed to be watching them anyway? Jesus. But anyway, Christopher goes back to his cell, and eventually a guard sees him and asks him why he's back so soon, and Christopher calmly tells them that he unalived some people and that his God told him to do it. Anyway, he was already serving life in prison, so on top of that, he gets another life sentence.